If you've seen my video about the most exciting upcoming open world adventure games, you know that my favorite game from that list was Atomic Heart. This game really did deserve its own video, and now I have the perfect opportunity to make one because the devs have recently published a Q&A on the Steam page for the game. If you've never heard of Atomic Heart, here's a quick summary of pretty much everything we knew about it before this Q&A. It's basically Soviet Bioshock, okay? That's what it is. And I'm not saying that as a bad thing. I'm here for it. I'm here for Soviet Bioshock, baby. The game's being developed by a mysterious Russian studio, Mundfish. This is their first game and there's not much that we know about them, but for a first project, Atomic Heart at least looks phenomenal. The game seems to have that lonely dystopian feeling of something like Fallout, Bioshock, or Metro, but set in an abandoned Soviet research facility. Of course, there's also a healthy dose of sci-fi because you can't just have a regular abandoned Soviet research facility where nothing scary goes on. The world seems to be full of these robots that were being developed there to help everyday citizens, but someone flipped a wrong switch or something and they're all supernatural killer machines now. There are big open world areas set in lush nature, as well as less spacious indoor facility grounds. The game is supposedly a love story at its core between you, a special duty KGB officer, and another employee of the facility. There's already quite a bit of gameplay and trailers for Atomic Heart, but as far as the story and mechanics go, not much was revealed until now. I'll go over some of these 39 questions that I think are important and try to condense and organize them. The devs are Russian, so some of this stuff is worded a bit strangely and kinda hard to understand, which is why I think watching this video is better than reading the Q&A yourself. And also, of course, I need your watch time for that YouTube coin, bro. Keep in mind that these are all words of the people developing the game, and no one would talk shit about their own product, so take all of this with a medium grain of salt. That being said, my impression is that they're being pretty realistic, and overall, for the most part, it doesn't sound like they're making stuff up. So firstly, let's establish the rough scope and size of this game. The main story is gonna be around 20 hours long. I know some of you might think this is too short, but I think it's completely acceptable for a small indie studio's first project. I'd much rather have a dense and fulfilling 20 hours than what feels like forced length with no real purpose. The devs also add that in order to truly understand the story, you might need to replay the game a few times. There are also side quests, although not many of them. They'll only serve to complement the plot and reveal it a bit more, but I assume there won't be any separate side storylines. There will, however, be quite a few puzzles that will force you to put in proper brain effort. Now, what about the map size? The world size isn't going to be huge for the modern standard, but it's filled with, quote, absolutely incredible events. They say they strive to not spread the thinnest layer of butter over a tremendous piece of bread, which is just the perfect analogy, and from now on I'll imagine a giant or tremendous piece of bread whenever I think about map size and density. They say they want to create concentrated pleasure for the players and provide them with experiences they won't find in other games. In this context, the sheer size of the world no longer matters, which is something I can definitely agree with as long as the world isn't comically small. So let's establish the genre of the game now. When asked if Atomic Heart was an immersive sim, they said that they're not striving to match the genre to the letter and canonically follow it. However, the game is perceived as a mixture of melee combat, shooter, and immersive sim by the people who've played it. I personally wouldn't expect too much freedom in how you approach missions, but I'm hoping there's at least some variety available. What you definitely can't do is play the game run and gun style. The devs say that it's a run and gun in the sense that if you shoot, you'll have to run. The system that controls the robots, called the Collective Network, has threat mechanics and reacts harshly to perpetrators. A loud gunshot is a serious reason to react by sending a new party of robots to your location. Nevertheless, you will have to shoot sometimes as a matter of survival and handle the consequences later. This sounds quite exciting to me. I love feeling like every bullet matters and being forced to be aware of my actions at all times. If done correctly and if the threat actually feels like a threat, this could add a whole lot of suspense to the game. Atomic Heart is also supposedly quite gory and has a glory kill system like in Doom, and on top of that a system of reverse glory kills, or glory deaths, I guess. There are dozens of ways in which the player can perish and they tried to make these terrible demises as impressive as possible. Sounds mildly psychopathic, but okay. The devs have confirmed that you can go stealth in some places, but to finish the game full stealth is not possible. They've never set that as a goal and don't see much sense in it. They think the combat in the game is quite satisfying, and depriving the player of combat for the sake of stealth wasn't the best solution for this particular game. On the topic of combat, there will be at least 10 different guns and 10 different melee weapons. We've also seen a glimpse of the weapon customization in the first trailer. The weapons can be upgraded to make them more powerful and precise. You can also install special modules in certain weapons for special attacks. The mod system is called cassettes, but they didn't want to go into more detail about this. Crafting will have a special place in the game. You can and need to craft quite many things during your playthrough, and you'll have to gather resources for that. A certain tactical approach is required to efficiently gather resources. Simply put, the harder you hit the robots, the more they break and the less useful resources they have. But on the other hand, this doesn't mean that the game pushes you to go full stealth. Everything is much more flexible and more complicated. In case you were wondering if you could customize clothing or hair, the answer is no! Mayor Nechayev has only 3 days to solve all problems. He doesn't waste time on that bullshit. He is also the only character you'll be able to play as, so there's no choice between male and female protagonists. The original story was written from the perspective of the specific male KGB officer, and adding a female option would bring along a lot of extra expenses like additional voice acting, filming, animations, etc. This is once again completely understandable. These things do demand a bigger budget, and not every game even needs to have both options. You also don't level up your character, but you can acquire skills with interesting mechanics that may be combined with each other. You'll also have to manage your inventory because being encumbered will affect your agility. There is one companion in the game, but he just keeps talking and talking. No one will help you finish the game, so don't get your hopes up. The artificial intelligence in the game, even if it pretends to be a companion, will still try to kill you in the end. Spoiler alert? Although, whenever there's an AI helping you in any game, you can pretty much assume that it'll turn on you eventually, so I guess it's not really a spoiler. In regards to how the lore will be elaborated in the game, I think it's best that I just read their answer because it's complicated as fuck and I'm not smart enough to simplify it for you. Atomic Heart lore is developed as much as possible for a game of this genre. There are many different entities in the game, variously intertwined with the complex systems and interconnections between each other. Some of the entities, such as the collective ecosystem, affect how the robots interact with each other in-game, and during the game you can study how they work, try different interactions, and see how the system reacts to such actions. Each robot, each creature, and technology in the game has its own aim and purpose. All studies that were carried out in the complex are described in great detail. Each study had its own initiator, a scientist or an engineer with their own background, motivation, and social rating. The player often hears the radio broadcast which immerses him in the events of that time, or he reads the correspondence of the perished employees. There you can hear the political debates on polymer education and so-called attracting audio clips. They avoided the concept of advertising, and these audio messages reveal the essence and purpose of the many technologies of the facility. I'll just let you interpret that on your own. Also related to the lore, they're not trying to make a historically accurate game. The game tells the events of World War II and other significant historical events, but they've definitely mixed different unrelated years into a single tight bundle. Even though at first glance the game does remind you of a few existing games, Mundfish say that they don't have a single source of inspiration. They've been influenced by many modern and not so modern works, Strugatsky Brothers, TV series such as Black Mirror, and games like Dark Souls or Dead Space. Not really the games you'd expect influenced them based on the trailer, but I guess we don't know until the game is actually out and playable. Atomic Heart is a unique project in many ways. From a first glance, it may look like a Bioshock series based on some of the trailers, but as you dig deeper, this appears to be only the first layer, and they have many more of those layers. There will be 2 difficulty levels in Atomic Heart. The first one is the hardcore difficulty for veterans of the Souls-like genre and those who like a serious challenge. They use this mode as a reference when working on the balance and combat system of the game, but they're keeping other players in mind as well. The second difficulty level is story playthrough, in which they've adapted gameplay so that the world of Atomic Heart could be enjoyed by a wider audience. There will also be no hardcore challenges and no platinum trophy for completing the game. You can compare this level of difficulty with Bioshock. The combat system and gameplay are thoroughly adapted to both difficulty levels for experienced and casual gamers to enjoy. When asked if there would be multiple endings and if the player choices will affect the story, they replied saying that's a secret. Winky face. Which I guess means yes to both, because why even include this question if the answer is no? The game will be dubbed in both Russian and English, and I'll definitely play it in Russian with English subtitles for that authentic Soviet experience. The actor playing the main character, P3, will also be doing his Russian voice. They have lots of original music for the game that they compose themselves and with famous authors. Even if the game won't have a physical release, they will have the soundtrack on some streaming platforms. Finally, here's where Atomic Heart currently stands in its development. All of the game's functions, mechanics, and systems are written and functioning. Most of the features are polished and are already in the game. Currently, they're scaling the content, adjusting the combat, improving the shooting, adding micro cutscenes where necessary, implementing story cutscenes, and everything related to the narrative of the game. This is the most important stage in terms of the direction of the game as a whole piece. They're quite close to the point where the game can be seen in its entirety with highly detailed levels, mechanics, animations, and sound. This is the stage during which it actually becomes clear how the game works in terms of the impact on the emotions of the player. This allows you to move from the perception of mechanics and individual levels, from particulars, to a more general understanding of things as a whole. It allows them to track things that were less clear from the closer view and improve them. In other words, the game is at the polishing stage. You can expect some dev diaries soon, which are currently being made. They want to show many aspects of development in these videos, such as narrative, filming, and production, but unfortunately the thing that's currently going on in the world took its toll and their filming plans moved quite a bit. This has also delayed the filming schedule of story cutscenes for the game. On top of the dev diaries, we can expect to see more of the game very soon, meaning a new trailer and possibly some other media opportunities. Finally, the most important question of the Q&A. Can you pet the dog? No, there is no dog. But there is pig. And you can pet pig. Thank you so much for watching. I'm really excited about this game. I'm looking forward to more news and more trailers and maybe even a release date soon. So of course, stay tuned to the channel for any future news about Atomic Heart. Also go and watch my last video if you haven't. If you made it to the end of this one, I'm sure you'll like the previous one about Mirror's Edge. Because if I'm being honest, it's like 10 times better than this one. I spent a lot of time on it and the views were kind of shit. So go watch it, do me a favor, leave a like, leave a comment, help a struggling YouTuber out.